Welcome to This Explainer. Let's jump straight into our topic for today, why business flows often matter more than applications. I am absolutely thrilled to unpack this with you because, honestly, it completely redefines how we need to approach operational resilience, crisis management, and our overall IT strategy. So, picture this scenario. Your organization just got hit by a major disruption. Your IT teams have been working around the clock, sweating bullets. And the good news? The infrastructure is back up. Users can log in, the applications are restored. But here's the catch. Your actual business operations are still completely blocked. How on earth is it possible that your IT infrastructure functions perfectly, yet the actual work of your company is entirely paralyzed? Why do so many organizations successfully restore their apps, but totally fail to restore their ability to operate? Well, we're going to dismantle this paradox logically. We'll be looking at the recovery paradox, where value resides, the business flow, changing priorities, the path to anti-fragility, and finally, next steps. Let's get right into it. Starting with part 1, the application recovery paradox and the illusion of functioning systems. Let's look at the immediate massive headache that CIOs, CISOs, and execs face when a disruption hits. Now, we all know organizations naturally and correctly see their applications as absolutely critical assets, and, they're right to think that way. Applications automate those incredibly tedious activities. They support our essential communications, and they facilitate daily business ops. But right there is the trap. Because they do all these essential things, we start viewing the application itself as the ultimate objective. But as we're going to see, simply having a running application is almost never the true end goal of a business. That brings us to part 2. Where value truly resides, moving beyond to static tools. If the end goal isn't just a running app, we've got to figure out where the actual value generation happens in a company. Let's break this down with a simple, everyday example, a customer order. When an order lands in your system, it holds potential value. But that value, it's only actually realized when it moves through a very specific sequence of transformations. First, the order has to be reviewed. Then it's validated. Next, it gets prepared, shipped, invoiced, and finally paid. Every single one of these steps transforms the situation. Every step creates additional value. So here is the crucial takeaway, a really profound realization. Value does not reside inside the application. Value resides inside the transformation. It is a total game changer for your perspective. Think about it. Every step we just talked about requires specific information, human or automated approvals, and actual decisions. That means the value lives in the action taking place, not just in the software that's passively storing the data. Which brings us right back to our opening paradox. If a team is missing the necessary information to validate a step, or if an approval process is entirely blocked, well, your application might be fully powered on, but that value transformation, it completely stops. The system is technically working, sure, but the transformation isn't happening. And without that transformation, the value stops moving. You are literally dead in the water, even with a dashboard full of green lights on your servers. Moving on to section 3, defining the business flow and moving value across the organization. This introduces the core concept that solves our paradox. This definition really hits the nail on the head regarding what we are actually trying to protect. A business flow is the sequence of transformations required to create value. It's the movement of information, the movement of approvals, the movement of decisions, and ultimately, the movement of value itself. And this movement, it rarely sits neatly tucked away inside one single piece of software. It crosses multiple teams, totally different departments, and a whole complex web of technologies. When you stack applications up against business flows, it becomes glaringly obvious why systems can be online while operations are completely dead. Applications are essentially static tools. They participate in the flow, absolutely, but they do not constitute the flow. Business flows, on the other hand, are the actual movement. They are the lifeblood of your operations. So the tools might work perfectly, but if that movement hasn't resumed, the value simply cannot circulate. Let's look at section 4, changing crisis priorities. This is all about preparing before the disruption hits. Because we now know that value relies entirely on movement, truly resilient organizations change their whole strategy long before a crisis ever happens. Check out this pre-crisis visibility checklist.
Having this mapped out is absolutely non-negotiable when the clock is ticking during a disaster scenario. You really cannot wait for a massive cyber attack or a catastrophic outage to figure this out. You have to proactively identify what exact information is required to keep our flow moving, which approvals are strictly essential versus just nice to have, which decisions actually allow us to progress to the next step, and what hidden dependencies are lurking in the background that could create massive bottlenecks. This right here brilliantly illustrates the paradigm shift we need to see at the COMEX and executive level. The old focus, that traditional, purely IT-centric view, just asks which application should we restore. But the new, truly resilient focus asks something much deeper. Which business flow must we put back into motion to allow value creation to resume? It's a subtle shift in phrasing, but man, it completely transforms your disaster recovery and crisis management priorities. It aligns your IT strategy directly with the actual survival of the business.
Let's jump into Section 5, the path to anti-fragility, using the Ransom-Kick resilience model. We'll explore how an organization actually matures its strategy to make sure value is preserved even under the most intense pressure. Real operational resilience isn't just a switch you flip, it's a strategic progression. It all starts with a deep understanding of value creation. Then you have to ensure the continuity of those flows. From there, you master reconstruction for when things inevitably break. Next is enabling clear, decisive decision-making during pure chaos. Then you move on to the demonstration and formal certification of those capabilities. And finally, you arrive at the ultimate goal, anti-fragility. The core message here is that resilience is not just protecting your tech. It is building the capacity to preserve, rebuild, and actually improve your organization's ability to create value despite any perturbation. And that brings us to Section 6, assuring resilience, and the next steps, specifically resources for C-suite and IT leaders. We've covered a ton of strategic ground in this explainer, shifting our view from simple application recovery to true business flow resilience. So let's look at exactly where you can go to implement these ideas. To truly master these concepts and build genuine operational resilience, you really need to dive into these mandatory resources. First, I highly recommend checking out the Assuring Resilience book series. For fantastic visual deep dives, definitely subscribe to the Archeon Group YouTube channel. If you prefer audio, tune into the podcasts Conversations Résilience, Ransom-Kick if you listen in French, and Ransom-Kick Resilience Talks for the English version. You can also explore everything further online at www.ransom-kick.com and www.archeons.app. And whatever you do, always keep the core model in mind. Create value, protect value, rebuild value. I'm going to leave you with this final, absolutely critical thought to discuss with your COMEX, your CIO, your CISOs, and your continuity managers as you evaluate your own operations. Look very closely at your strategies and ask yourselves, are you simply protecting your technologies, or are you actually protecting your ability to create value? Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer. Start mapping those business flows, and I'll catch you next time.